Hello, and welcome back to Tai'Shar Wheel of Time podcast. I'm Sam.
I'm Will.
We are here to get a little bit off topic. I've done that in a minute.
Yep. We got a very tiny bit of show news that I wanted to bring up first thing. But after that, there are several things that have come out in the last 6 months that
Right.
we haven't gotten to talk about that
Sure
have
thing.
nothing to do with Wheel of Time. So,
Right.
but first thing, and this is last year, any little scrap of news about the show, we were regularly
All over, yeah.
all over. We're probably not going to be following the minor details and little bits as much as just looking at the bigger details that come out. This one's a pretty big detail because it's a casting of
Yeah.
major character, and I'm probably going to butcher her name as I often do, but
Right.
Ayula Smart.
That seems decent approach to me.
Who's been cast as Avienda. I think this is an unexpected choice in one ways because she is not
She's got
white.
dreads. Yeah, she's got dreads.
She's ethnic of some kind.
Right. Yeah.
And I think, you and I discussed it, picturing the Aiel, especially considering we've seen Rand, and, it's like, well, they have to look like him. Well, apparently they don't have to look like him.
Right.
But she does have reddish hair.
Yep.
So they got the main thing that you got to have.
Yeah, I'm good with that. I don't mind it.
And of course, if she is solid, as cast has been, in spite
I've had no qualms with the cast, really.
In spite of some weak writing here and there, or odd adjustments they've had to make because of pandemic stuff. Anyway, so it's just cool to see the casting. It's like, oh, this is actually continuing on, and hopefully they make some adjustments. And
right.
Anyway, so that was the big one. A much smaller detail is that. And I'm unclear on who exactly made this filing, but apparently there was a filing for a copyright filing for a video game called The White Tower.
Interesting.
And I don't know if people are assuming this is involved with
the show,
or because the filing I couldn't quite figure out. Mentioned something about augmented reality.
Oh, okay. That definitely changes my mental model of what we're talking about here. From
exactly
a full-on video, because Amazon has pretty formidable video game studio. I mean, they've done some quality games that weren't as widespread as they could have been, or kind of flubbed the launch. But like their technical ability to make a good game, I think, is without question. It's just But this sounds like this is not going to be a AAA
like
blockbuster kind of
a mobile.
Yeah, like Pokemon Go, but with Aes Sedai or whatever.
Right, which could work.
I'll check it out. I haven't really done much augmented reality stuff. It's just never really been my bag.
I played Pokemon Go for the first year. And
I played for the first week.
Yeah, I kind of waited till the initial popularity kind of died down, and but I enjoyed walking around. It was fun when I found the spots where the stops and the gyms and everything were, and when I'd be walking around in the park and I'd see other people walking around and realize they were staring at their phones and looking around, and they're probably playing it too, and so I'm there's a Dratini over there. Or whatever. I don't think Wheel of Time would quite be, just because the fandom is so much more specific than.
Yes, that's true.
Pokemon was pretty far reaching already when it came out. But anyway, those were the main two bits. There may be something else that has happened that I have missed. Again, I went and got married, and I've been distracted with marital things.
That will do it. Yep.
So
I understand. Believe me, I do.
Anyway, I will say we did have a few people write in, and
cool.
I'm not going to bring any of those up. Most of them were just checking on us to see if we're okay.
You guys still there?
A few folks were like, "I really miss you guys," and thank you so much.
Cool.
I had a few folks that were wishing me a good wedding, and
man, awesome.
I appreciated that. I will say I had a really great wedding, and I say that in spite of the fact that Sam's grandfather-in-law passed away.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that was such a nightmare. Oh man, that was a really terrible time. Some terrible timing. Like if literally the funeral was the same time as Will's wedding.
It was just the craziest thing, and
so Bear, my grandfather-in-law's funeral instead of being at Will's wedding.
It just happened that Sam had to miss, and so I had a cousin of mine who was a similar enough size that
right. I'm really glad that at least that part worked out.
Yeah. So that was a little disappointing. Mainly because I know Sam would have had a blast hanging out that weekend.
God, I was crushed.
I know.
I was crushed on just to have to make that call to you right before you got married. Like, what kind of person does this?
And I also knew I was like, I couldn't say anything other than, well, you gotta be there, man. And so, what kind of person is going to tell you, you need to be at my wedding and instead of supporting your wife?
Man.
That would be evidence of me not being wise about entering into a wedding myself. Yeah, did I tell you about we did some cameos for our so I apologize to your listeners. We don't typically talk about our personal lives much, but this was nerdy stuff, and I think you guys would appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So at our reception, one of the things that we did that I hadn't heard of anybody doing, and I'm sure other people have now, but ordered a bunch of cameos and had them each introduce a different part of the reception. So
cool.
The biggest name one that we got was Sean Astin.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
What did he introduce?
So he introduced us at the reception. So
oh man, that's super cool.
So yeah,
that's super cool.
So he shared a scripture that had been meaningful in his marriage, and then said, and introduced us.
Oh wow, that is the coolest.
So we had him. We had Jason David Frank, who played the Green and White Ranger in the original Power Rangers.
Nice. Didn't he just get in trouble for something?
No, so that was Austin St. John, the Red Ranger.
That was the Red Ranger. Okay.
Yes.
Oh no. Okay. Yeah, the Green Ranger. He's a cool guy. Yeah, I met him at. I think I met him at Dragon Con, and he was so cool. I met him, the nicest guy.
At a con 3 or 4 years ago. Yeah, just seems like a genuinely nice guy.
Yeah,
I've met the other Power Rangers too, and they're all like okay people, but he was like actually like standing there,
right?
Like asking questions, not just like signing stuff, but
like engaging with his fans. Yeah,
right.
I had the exact same experience. Yeah,
right. Yeah, whereas I kind of felt like I met David Yost, Blue Ranger, and I kind of felt like he's kind of like an introvert, didn't really want to be there, but
right.
He's probably a nice enough guy, but
no, that's a really cool one too. That's not quite on the level of Sean Astin, I agree, but that is awesome.
Yeah, for like a specific, kind of like nerd our age,
anyone, would see that and immediately know who it was. Super stoked.
So also Doug Jones.
Nice. That's cool. Yeah. That was cool.
Yeah.
Was he wearing any sort of rubber suit?
No, he wasn't.
To be fair, looking at him, I mean, he certainly looks like several of his characters.
Yes, he does. I did ask him to like introduce himself for people that may not recognize him, because he's been in a ton of stuff, and you probably
like, hi, I was the Silver Surfer.
Right, exactly. And in The Flash and
maybe don't
Arrow,
leave with that.
Right. All sorts of different stuff, and Star Trek Discovery.
Yeah, that's what I think of him most. Discovery.
Anyway, he's
Shape of Water. We can forget that
one.
Well,
that's we want to talk about that one. I think the one we wrapped up with, I feel like I'm skipping one, but was Kevin Sorbo.
Nice.
Hercules. So
I love it. That's good too. That's fun. I want to Google to see what he looks like now.
We also got, I forget what the guy's name was. It's Sean something. He was real cheap. That's part of the reason why I got him. But okay, you know the movie That Thing You Do?
Mm-hmm.
Sean Whalen. Yes, thank my wife is listening.
Nice.
Okay, you know the movie That Thing You Do. Yeah.
I'm looking him up. Okay. All right. Very cool.
So he's a character actor. He's been in a ton of stuff. He's one of those guys.
Right. You like see his face, like, I recognize him. Yeah.
He's in that movie briefly, and he shouts guys up on stage at one point, "Hey, when are you going to play that thing you do?" So we just had him say that and then played that thing you do at our
nice. The best use of him.
That was funny. Yeah. So
that sounds awesome, man.
Yeah. Fun little nerdy bits of things.
Absolutely.
One of the things that I wanted us to talk about, although I feel like I can't talk about.
It's okay. It really is. I went and spoiled myself just because. I mean, I'm going to watch it, and it's okay. I promise.
So
please go ahead.
Okay. Well, okay. So we got to talk about Obi-Wan Kenobi, right? I mean,
absolutely. It's been shocking to see some people on like Reddit being like, "Oh, I don't like it." Like, really? I mean, feel free to say that about Boba Fett. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean,
with great reason. But man,
you could take or leave Boba Fett. But
yes, I decided to leave it. I know that the last few episodes are great. I heard about it, and I just haven't watched them. Like, I can't be bothered.
You're going to probably, before you watch the next season of Mandalorian, you'll probably have to watch like those last few episodes.
Yeah, because it's like pretty much just the Mandalorian.
Yeah, they know who people want to see. It's funny because Obi-Wan, I didn't have that like, hey, I've got to see the next episode. I've got to see the next episode.
Yeah, sure.
But this last episode, I really was like, oh, that was like weirdly satisfying.
Yeah, I heard that they like fixed kind of a problem with the way that, like, I guess, do we want to say spoilers? I don't know if you want to.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so let's just say spoilers for the Obi-Wan Kenobi show.
Yeah.
So spoilers if you don't want to.
If you're like me and you haven't seen the most recent episode, then maybe
if you don't want to hear about it, then yeah. So, but anyway, yes. Are you talking about what Obi-Wan says to Luke in episode 4, and then later, gives the kind of cop out? Well, from a certain point of view,
right.
Answer. I don't know why I did that.
Never satisfying.
Yeah, it was always a little bit like, but is it really? I mean, is it? No, it's not from a certain point of view.
Right.
But yeah, you instead you have Darth Vader, whose mask is partially off, so you're hearing it overlapping the Darth Vader voice with the Anakin's original voice saying, "I wasn't your failure. You didn't kill Anakin Skywalker. I did."
And much better. Better.
Right. Gives you like, okay, so
we can work with that.
Yeah, you feel a little bit more like, so Obi-Wan didn't just make that junk up. He actually was at least adapting something Anakin himself said.
Yeah. That's good. That's exactly what this kind of show should do, is kind of make better connections between the prequels and the original trilogy.
Right.
In the places where it didn't quite work.
Yeah, and it's funny because they kind of tricked us into thinking this would be all about like young Luke, and then it ends up
he's like not even in it.
Yeah,
which is good because he didn't know the guy. I mean, you'd have to do some Jedi mind tricks, some major Jedi mind tricks, for him to go on adventures with Obi-Wan and then be like, I don't know that guy,
Well, I mean, he knows him. He knows his name. He's
right, but he doesn't know him. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's like they haven't hung out. He doesn't know. Right. He doesn't know he's a Jedi.
Yeah. They're not buddies.
Right.
They haven't gone on adventures together at all. He's never been to his house, for crying out loud.
Versus like the baby Leia, which she's not really a baby, but I've heard people call her baby Leia, and I like that because it's like baby Yoda, baby Leia.
Right.
She was perfect.
Yeah, she needed to be the star of the show because she was great.
I said to my wife as we were finishing up watching, I was like, that little girl is going to get her own spinoff. Like,
oh yeah, she should.
We need a 10-year-old Leia getting up to hijinks on Alderaan.
Right, with Lola.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I was like, and I don't even care about like all the other angry Star Wars fans that are like, it's getting too saturated. You're making too much stuff. It's not special anymore. And
I think I'm more willing to give a show like this room because the prequels, I don't know, they're flawed, but they're also fun.
Yeah.
And so like I'm okay with expanding that part of the universe, and especially putting Ewan McGregor back on Cameron.
Oh yeah,
like,
yeah.
And I mean, in like the Inquisitors are fun. The idea that they were Jedi or younglings that turned to the Sith, to the dark side, that makes sense. Like, they weren't suddenly just like, it's not like the Emperor had a bunch of Sith apprentices. They had to come from somewhere, so it's satisfying. I mean, it works for me. And so I'm certainly one of those that says that the Star Wars canon is getting too saturated with nonsense. I really like this show, and I like The Mandalorian. There's some of it I like, and could do without Boba Fett.
Yeah, well, and I will say, in defense of Star Wars canon being filled with nonsense, while anything Timothy Zahn wrote was awesome, there were a lot of Star Wars novels that were not as awesome.
You took the words right out of my mouth. I think what has made me salty from the get-go, and I think there's a lot of people like me, is that they just said all the novels are legends, or dismissing them out of hand.
Right.
Like, well, man, that was what I grew up reading. That to me is Star Wars. Zahn. Yes, there's plenty of stuff that's like weird romantic stuff with, I think there was a book where Lando accidentally marries like a life witch or something. I don't know. There's some crazy stuff. All the stuff with using Vong is sort of questionable, although I wouldn't mind if they did that. But yeah, I mean, you can't just dismiss something like Zahn. I mean, and like some of those foundational novels.
Since we are mostly a book podcast, we haven't talked much about our favorite Star Wars novels. And that.
Yeah, I mean, I think certainly Heir to the Empire and that whole trilogy. I mean, there's, Thrawn, that whole, I mean, that corner of the universe, it's hard to get better than that. I mean, although Stackpole, the X-Wing stuff is fun too.
What's his name? Anderson?
Aaron Anderson. Yeah, Anderson, Aaron Austin, maybe. Oh, sorry, and Michael J. Anderson or something like that. Kevin J. Anderson. I'm throwing out random names here.
Kevin J. Anderson wrote the Jedi Academy trilogy,
right? And then there was like a bunch of like young Jedi Knights books, like they were kind of YA. I think he wrote those too. Yeah.
Which I never read any of those because honestly, the covers looked a little juvenile. But
I read all of them. Yep,
I did. I didn't read any of them. But if there are any that are good, you can tell me which. But
no, I can't remember.
But I highly recommend that Thrawn series, the Heir to the Empire series, and the Jedi Academy series, and anything by Timothy Zahn.
Yeah, and some of the others really are like the one-offs, especially are weird. I remember there's a scene in one where Leia like leaves her body as a Force ghost, and this like Sith type of dude, sort of dark Force, inhales her in a little sort of weird, sexy way. And I remember thinking, this is so weird.
And bear in mind, at that time, that was canon. That was just as much canon.
Exactly. Yeah. I think I remember reading Lucas said, just don't do anything permanent with Luke's love life. And so they were like, and then finally he's like, I don't care. And then that's when they brought in Mara Jade. It was like wide open, like no one cared.
So like when people get like up in arms about like Star Wars canon and everything, I'm like, okay, first of all, you got to read the books because there are some really great ones, and then there are some very weird ones.
Right.
And
it's just weird to recommend them now because it's like, well, it's disconnected from, the universe, and
right.
I don't know.
Which, I mean, it's not even like that was an unusual circumstance, because one of the very first Star Wars novels, Splinter in the Mind's Eye, was an alternate storyline that was rejected.
Yeah, some of the best comics are what if, like, what if this subtle detail in the first movie was changed, and then it would go through the whole trilogy again, and like what if Luke did turn to the dark side kind of stuff, and those are so good. Those comics are awesome.
Yeah,
but it did just kind of take the wind out of my sails when Disney bought Lucasfilm and then just said all the books are not canon, but especially because they made like the Clone Wars TV show canon. Like, I never watched that. Like, I just don't like it. It kind of made me, as a longtime Star Wars fan, be like, well, I guess you're not making the Star Wars that I know and care about.
Yeah.
And so that's
it did seem like, they like to go whole cloth like that was frustrating. I of course, with the way the sequel trilogy was, of course, it ended on such a meh kind of.
Yeah, I mean, when you're doing a soft reboot like that, it became pretty clear that's what they were doing. So they were just soft rebooting the original trilogy without saying that they were. And fine, whatever, do that.
Well, they didn't have a plan. That was just the problem. They didn't have a solid
you can see that between Ryan Anderson and JJ in the last two movies are like warring ideologies for what the clearly, if Ryan had been able to make the third movie, he would not have made the third movie that we got.
Yeah. Well, and it's just interesting. Like, I would be interested to see a completely Rian Johnson directed trilogy because he
was getting one at one point, and I don't know if that
that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm curious to see if that'll still happen. I know there's been rumors about it happening and then not happening and then happening again.
And Knives Out was great. Looper was great. I mean, I love the guy.
His first movie is one of my favorite.
You introduced me to that.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure.
I probably did. I introduced that to a lot of people. That was my I found this indie movie. You gotta watch it.
Right?
Like, because it came out when we were in college, and so it was like really cool to be able to be like, oh, here's this indie movie you've never heard of this.
Yeah, for sure.
And it was like Joseph Gordon-Levitt's first real serious role too, and
sure.
Anyway, I love that movie.
It's a great one. I agree.
It's, if you're not familiar, it's a film noir set at a California high school. It takes itself completely seriously, totally pulls it off.
Yeah, definitely does.
Anyway, so Obi-Wan was fun. Did you watch any of Moon Knight?
I did watch Moon Knight. I consider myself an MCU sort of super fan. I'm not. The only MCU content I've still not seen is the Inhumans, and I am okay with that. Like, I'm not going to do it. I'm straight up not going to do it.
Don't even bother. I was a huge fan of the Inhuman comics.
I was not. So you got one up on me on that.
Well, I'm just saying, I should have loved that, and I hated it. I
always was annoyed by the Inhumans, especially as it became apparent that the powers that be, I guess Joe Quesada, I don't know, were like, well, we don't own the rights to make the X-Men movies, so we're just going to make them the villains and sort of replace them with the Inhumans. Anywhere you'd have a mutant, you'll have an Inhuman. It's like, oh, that's not cool, man. That's yucky. And that's the reason I never liked the Inhumans. And then, of course, the movie that turned into a TV show was awful, and so I was like, well, okay, I'm okay.
Yeah, it was
all
terrible.
That to say, I love the MCU. I watched Moon Knight, and I thought it was okay.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's just it's funny because I saw this chart that was showing all the connections of the different MCU characters with each other, who's appeared in what movies.
And the Moon Knight is by himself.
Yeah, it's over here off.
This might have kind of happened for real, or maybe not. Maybe it was on his head.
Yeah.
Did you see Legion?
No, I never watched Legion. It looked good.
To me, it's a better example of what Moon Knight did, personally.
Yeah.
But I'm I'm more of an X-Men fan. I never read any of the Moon Knight comics, so I wasn't exactly the target audience for this anyway. But Oscar Isaac's great. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It just wasn't. It was okay.
Did you watch The Gifted back when it?
I didn't finish it. I didn't watch all of it, but I did watch. Yeah, I did watch some of it.
The first season of The Gifted, I thought, was just awesome. And
yeah, I think I agree with that. It's been long enough that I don't totally remember it. I remember there was a few characters in it that I wasn't. Was it Proud Star? One of the guys, or the Native American guy? What's his name?
See, there was Polaris and
what's the guy's name?
I can't remember the
name.
Enough. Yeah. Anyway, the second season it tapered real quickly for me though.
Yeah.
I was just like, why do I not care anymore? And I'll tell you why I don't care anymore is because the first season took place in Atlanta.
Oh, right.
And then the second season, while they were still filming in Atlanta, because everything is filmed in Atlanta now,
right?
They were trying to act like it was in Washington, D.C. or something. And I was like, I'm just not as interested anymore. Because I'm when it was in Atlanta, I'm like, oh yeah, because they're actually referring to places I know about and everything.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
But also, I did enjoy the characters, but I liked Moon Knight. I can see why it didn't appeal to everybody because it's very different. But I enjoyed the characters, and by the characters, I mean Oscar Isaac.
Oscar Isaac as various characters. Yeah, sure, totally. Yeah, no, he did a bang up job. Certainly not detracting at all from him. He's great.
I saw a post that was something like, "No one has better chemistry than Oscar Isaac and Oscar Isaac.
Right. That's, there's something to be said. But it's kind of like Tatiana Maslany.
Oh, yeah. Tatiana Maslany. I love her in Orphan Black.
Yes. That's a great, exactly the same kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I hope she's great in She-Hulk. Although looking at like stills of She-Hulk, like I'm a little worried about the CG or whatever the heck they're doing. It's kind of weird looking, but hopefully it's just pre-production, nonsense.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah. I don't know. I'll still watch it because it's MCU and Tatiana Maslany.
So on the subject of MCU, of course, Doctor Strange.
Yes.
Oh man, I was bummed because I couldn't, like, it's just hard to get out. It's hard to get out to the theater with kids. So like one Sunday, Rachel was like, "You seem down." She's like, "Why don't you go take some you time, like during nap time?" And she's like, "Why don't you just go do something you want to do?" I was like, "You know what I really want to do? I really want to go sit in a movie theater by myself and watch Doctor Strange." So I did, and it was everything I hoped it would be.
Yep.
I love the movie.
Yeah, it was really fun. I loved the them traveling to the alternate universe. Where, you had the guy who played Black Bolt in that terrible Inhumans.
It's great. It's like what Avengers Endgame movie would we have gotten if Marvel had all the rights to Fox properties long before they had them? Yeah, of course we would have had Professor X there on the moon. Of course we would have had Mr. Fantastic. I'm sorry, should we have given a spoiler warning? We've already kind of done that a few times, right?
I mean, I don't know what to say if you because it's been like more than a month, and
now it's on Disney Plus, isn't it? I think.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, everybody.
Yeah,
I really love John Krasinski as Mr. Fantastic, and I don't apologize for that. I hope he comes back, since he did, of course, his alternate universe self did die horribly.
Yes, spaghettification.
Along with Captain Carter getting cut in half. I'm like, man, Doctor Strange, jeez.
Yeah, that was, it's funny because like Sam Raimi. Really able to go back to his horror
roots. Yes, indeed. You always think about him as the Spider-Man guy, but he's also done a bunch of pulp horror.
Yep, and it was also, I mean, it's fun because it had the campiness that you expect from Raimi, which some people it really turned off. I know, and which I'm like, I get it.
Bruce Campbell with the cameo.
Yeah, gotta have Bruce Campbell.
Yeah.
That was a blast, and then the after credits with him.
I know people were mad about that. They're like, "This was not a real after credits." Come on, there's been so many MCU movies with goofy after credits like that.
It's
like
true.
Spider-Man with Captain America doing his videos.
Yeah, it was like patience.
Right.
Yeah, that one or Iron Man 3 was my least favorite because that one was just him talking to Bruce. At the end is apparently the whole time.
Right.
Anyway, yeah, I wanted to mention my wife and I have recently played The Quarry.
Okay.
You heard about this game? Are you familiar with it? So I don't typically play these kind of interactive dramas. They're kind of more like playable novels or playable movies.
Cool.
Where it's like, the graphics are really solid.
Yeah.
And kind of watching, and then it'll give you a choice.
Yeah.
And it's more akin to like a modern choose your own adventure experience than it is like what I think of as video games.
Yeah, sure.
There's not a ton of like free roaming.
It's a walking sim.
Right. There's times where get the opportunity to walk around, but it's all pretty limited. But we watched a clip that was released ahead of time of like the first 30 minutes of it and kind of got hooked. Started off watching a Wii play, but I think we were getting frustrated at the decisions that the person
like, dang it, I need to play this myself.
So anyway, it's a horror story, and I won't spoil any of it because it's I think anybody who wants to check it out. Of course, there's plenty of people who've played it online that you can watch.
Cool.
Or check it out and for yourself. But it's kind of in a lot of ways it's a bit of a love letter to both slasher but also like supernatural, kind of a little bit cabin in the woods ish. It centers around a group of camp counselors after the last day of camp when they are supposed to have left camp, but they end up staying another night and things go awry. So according to how you play, different characters will survive the night.
Cool.
And, new things are revealed about what is actually happening as the story goes along. It was a lot of fun. We enjoyed it, and we've been talking about it. And then after we played through it, then we watched the movie mode where you can select which feels like cheating, but you can just say I want to see what it looked like if everybody survived or if nobody survived, and then
that's cool.
Then you can watch through.
You have to go through the fuss of actually playing it again to see all the different endings.
Right. And then, of course, like I said, there's tons of people online who have done, hey, here's this moment if this happens. And
cool.
There's lots of different branching storylines and everything. So that's The Quarry.
Heck yeah, man.
Which it's called that because the camp they're at is called Hackett's Quarry. And I didn't immediately realize but it's also called that because the word,
they are the quarry.
Yes, the quarry, the object of hunt, of somebody's hunt. Anyway.
Heck yeah, that sounds great. I haven't played a video game in forever, it feels like, but it sounds like a good one. I won't go long, but I do want to mention For All Mankind on Apple TV. So we got a free year of Apple TV, and we got an Apple TV, the actual Apple TV gizmo.
Right.
And it just ran out. And so getting charged that $5 is painful. And I was ready to cancel it. And then season 3 of For All Mankind came out. And man, let me tell you, it's just, to me, it's the best TV right now. It's really good. It's an alternate reality, sort of lightly, I guess, sci-fi in the most strict sense of sci-fi, of science fiction. And the whole premise is that Russia beats the U.S. to the moon. Mm-hmm. And what would happen after that, and what would happen in their mind, in the show's mind, is it would kick off it would heat up the space race. That they beat us to the moon. Well, then we're going to have to beat them to Mars. Is where this season goes. And so it's like all of the ripple effects of things that would happen if Russia beat the US to the moon. And the characters are great. A lot of characters from history, and also they do a lot of cool supercuts of with footage of say Bill Clinton debating one of these astronauts who's running for president, kind of stuff, and even sort of lightly dubbing his voice, making me wonder who is doing the convincing Bill Clinton impression, which is pretty good. So highly recommend it. It's certainly not sci-fi in the same sense as Star Wars, but it is really,
Star
it's
Wars
really
is
good
fantasy
drama.
Set in space,
yeah,
anyway.
Fair enough. Yeah. So maybe a better comparison would be it's not sci-fi in the same sense of Star Trek Discovery, but
there you go.
It's much more a drama about NASA and the Russian space program. Highly recommend. We've been loving it.
Did you watch Foundation at all?
I tried. I watched 2 episodes, and I read the book and I enjoyed the book. And when I saw they were adapting it, I was sort of skeptical, how are you going to make a TV show about this? And I think my fears were founded.
Yeah.
I don't know. I tried. I should try again, maybe.
I have such high praise for the production design and the visual.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it.
It is I think it's frustrating because it's not that it's bad show.
Right.
It's just, I think I haven't read the Foundation series, but I've heard a lot of people say
the dude that
thing.
They got to play what's his face was the guy from Chernobyl, which, man, that's a great show.
There's just so many scenes where it's visually arresting, and it's man, this is really incredible. But
right.
Yeah, it's
I'm
not
having trouble caring.
Yeah, it is hard to care about the characters, frankly.
Right.
But anyway, I just mentioned that because I know that's on Apple TV also.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, there's several good shows on Apple TV, but I really would say personally that for me at least, For All Mankind is the best Apple TV content.
Okay. You want to wrap us up?
Yeah. So as usual, if you have any thoughts for us and you'd like to share them, you can reach us on our website, tsmpodcast.com. You can email us tsstuff@tsmpodcast.com. Will is active on the socials, Facebook, Insta, etc. And
those are all at Podcast TSM. If you
at
go
Podcast
to
TSM, right?
TSM Podcast, and you get Thriving Sexy Marriages.
Thriving Sexy Marriage, which is good too, I'm sure. Haven't listened to them. But yeah, so we'd love check us out on YouTube. If you like us there, we could get the vanity URL, do the whole live stream thing, which we should just do sometime anyway.
Yeah, we may just relent and do that regardless.
I'll put on a shirt and we could do that whole thing.
I'll do my hair.
Right. I'll do bathe. Until next time, Tai'Shar Manethrin.